My name is Jenna Kowalski. I'm 32 years old. 6 weeks ago, my family gathered at Carmine's Grill in downtown Hartford to celebrate the job offer I had just received from Whitmore and Brand, a mid-size architectural firm where I had interviewed 4 times over 3 months and where the starting salary was $94,000, the highest I had ever been offered in my life. My mother stood up at the table, tapped her wine glass, and gave a toast. It was about my brother. His name is Scott. He had been promoted that week, from assistant floor manager to floor manager at the distribution warehouse where he had worked for 6 years. It was a genuinely good thing for him. It was also a $4 per hour raise. And it was not why we were all at Carmine's Grill on a Tuesday night. My mother spoke for 4 minutes. I timed it because somewhere around minute 2, I had stopped being able to feel my hands, and I needed something to focus on. She talked about Scott's dedication, his work ethic, his persistence, how proud the family was, how hard he had worked for this moment. My father beamed. My aunts murmured. My grandmother, who is 81 and sharper than everyone at the table combined, looked at me from across the centerpiece with an expression I will not forget for the rest of my life. What my mother did not know, what none of them knew, was that the woman sitting at table 4, 2 feet from the low partition separating our private dining area from the main restaurant, was Renata Walsh, the founding partner of Whitmore and Brand, who had come in for dinner with her husband and 2 colleagues, and who had recognized me the moment I walked in and given me a small, warm wave. I had not told my family she was there. I had decided, somewhere between the breadsticks and the second glass of water, to let the evening be exactly what it was. Before I tell you what happened, please like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment. Where are you watching from and what time is it there? I love connecting with you all. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. Growing up in Newington, Connecticut, I learned that in my family, love was loud and selective. It landed on certain people with a weight and warmth that you could feel from across the room. And it moved around other people like water around a stone, present on all sides technically, but never quite touching. My family. My father, Dennis, a retired electrician, big laugh, generous with everyone in a radius of about 10 feet, and genuinely blind, I believe, to most of what happened outside that radius. My mother, Carol, the kind of woman who organized everything and felt everything but named almost nothing, who communicated through emphasis and omission and the specific timing of her silences. My brother, Scott, 3 years older, easy in his skin, the kind of person a room relaxes around. And me, Jenna, the one who studied, the one who stayed late, the one whose achievements arrived quietly and were received accordingly. Scott was celebrated out loud. I was acknowledged in passing. When I was 15, I placed second in the Connecticut State Academic Decathlon. 8 months of work, early mornings, a written portfolio that my teacher called the strongest she had seen in 12 years of coaching the program. I came home with a silver medal and a certificate signed by the state superintendent of education. My mother put the certificate on the refrigerator with a magnet. That same weekend, Scott scored 2 goals in a regional hockey playoff game. My father took the whole family to friendlies. There were photographs. My mother called her sister from the parking lot, laughing. I told myself it was different. Sports were communal. Academic competitions were quieter. It made sense that people responded differently. I believed this for longer than I should have. At 20, I was a sophomore at UConn on a partial academic scholarship when I was selected for a summer internship at a Hartford design studio. 30 applicants, 4 spots. Competitive in a way that my advisor said was unusual for someone at my stage. I called home to tell my parents. My mother said that was wonderful and then spent 15 minutes telling me about a job Scott was thinking about applying for and whether I thought he should mention the hockey on his resume. I said I didn't know. I probably should have said something else. I was 20, and I still believed that things would eventually balance out, that the ledger was just running a little behind. It was not running behind. There was no ledger. That was simply how things were. At 26, I finished my master's degree in architectural design. 3 years of work, a thesis project that was selected for a regional juried exhibition, a graduate advisor who told me in my final review that I had a genuinely rare spatial intelligence, and she expected to see my name on buildings someday. I flew home for a weekend in May. My parents took me to dinner. Just the four of us. A nice enough place, a real gesture, I want to be fair about that. Halfway through dinner, my mother mentioned that Scott had just bought a new truck. A Ford F-150, extended cab, dark blue. She said it very nicely. She did not seem to notice that we had come specifically to talk about my degree. My father asked about the towing capacity of the F-150, and the conversation went there and stayed there for 25 minutes. I ate my salmon and nodded, and told myself this was just how families worked, that I was being oversensitive, that my parents were proud of me even if they didn't always say it in the shape I needed them to. I drove back to campus the next morning and sat in the parking lot of my apartment complex for a long time and thought about what it would feel like, just once, to be the whole subject of an evening instead of the opening act. Years passed. I built a career anyway. That is the thing about needing to prove something, even if only to yourself. It is terrible fuel, but it is fuel. I worked at 2 firms before Whitmore. I was good at what I did. I had a small reputation in Hartford's architecture community for residential renovation work, specifically for a sensitivity to how people actually moved through spaces, which sounds soft until you realize that most buildings are designed without it. I had a portfolio. I had references. I had a name. When Whitmore and Brand posted the senior associate position, my friend and former colleague Priya sent me the listing at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday with a single text. "This is you. Apply tonight." I applied that night. 4 interviews over 3 months. The 4th was with Renata Walsh herself. 90 minutes in her corner office. More conversation than interrogation. The kind of meeting where you leave not certain whether it went well, but certain that it was real. She asked me about a residential project I had done in 2021. A gut renovation of a 1940s bungalow for a family with 3 young children, and wanted to know how I had arrived at the decisions I made in the common spaces. I talked for 12 minutes without stopping. She listened without looking at her phone once. 2 weeks later, her assistant called with the offer. $94,000 base, full benefits, a title I had been working toward for 8 years, and a note in the offer letter that said Renata looked forward to building something together. I called Priya first. I cried. She cried. We were both unprofessional, and I am proud of it. Then I called my mother. She said that was wonderful. She asked if the commute would be manageable. She said my father would be happy to hear it. Then she said, before we hung up, that Scott had also had some news that week. The promotion had just come through, and wouldn't it be nice to celebrate both things together? I want to be precise about how I felt in that moment. It was not anger exactly. It was something older and tireder than anger. It was the feeling of recognizing a pattern so familiar it had stopped surprising you, the way you stop noticing a sound you have heard every day for years. I said that sounded like a good idea. I chose Carmine's Grill because I had been there once with Priya and remembered it as warm and well-run, and not the kind of place where you could make a scene without everyone in the building knowing about it. I made a reservation for 12. I sent the details to the family group chat. I did not tell anyone that Renata Walsh lived 4 blocks from Carmine's Grill, or that she ate there regularly, or that her assistant had mentioned this offhandedly during one of our scheduling calls, and I had filed it away in the particular way you file things you don't know yet that you'll need. I was not planning anything. I want to be honest about that. I was not engineering an outcome. I simply chose a restaurant I liked for reasons that were my own, and I did not share all of those reasons. The evening started well enough. Wine was poured, bread arrived. My aunt complimented my hair. My father told a story about a job he'd done in 1987 that I had heard 40 times and still laughed at because his timing has always been genuinely good. And then my mother stood up. I watched her reach for her glass. I watched her tap it. I watched the table turn toward her with the particular attentiveness that means someone is about to say something that matters. My chest tightened. I thought, maybe this time. She looked at Scott. "I just want to say," she said, "that we are so proud of this young man." I put my fork down. She talked about Scott's promotion, the years of early mornings, the physical demands of warehouse work, the management responsibility he was now stepping into. She talked about how he had never complained, had always shown up, had made the family proud in the quietest possible way. These things are true, genuinely. I want to say that clearly. Scott works hard. Scott is a good person. Scott did not ask for this and does not deserve to be the villain of my story. But I had interviewed 4 times for a position at a firm with a 30-year reputation in Connecticut architectural design, and I had gotten the offer, and that was why we were at Carmine's Grill, and my mother was toasting my brother's $4 per hour raise. At some point during the toast, I looked toward the main restaurant. Renata Walsh was looking at me. She had clearly been listening for at least part of it. Our partition was low, the restaurant was ambient rather than loud, and my mother's voice carries. Renata's expression was not pitying exactly. It was thoughtful. She was reading the situation with the same focused attention she had brought to my interview, and I had the very clear sense that she was filing it away the same way I had filed away the detail about her favorite restaurant. My grandmother Eleanor, her name was Rose, my grandmother Rose, caught my eye again across the centerpiece. She gave me a small nod. Not sympathetic, more like, I see what's happening. Do you? I did. When my mother finished and sat down and the table applauded, and Scott looked genuinely embarrassed in the way he always did when he was centered, I stood up. I did not plan a speech. I had 3 or 4 sentences in my head and I used them. I also want to say something, I said. The table looked at me. I accepted a job offer this week. Senior associate at Whitmore and Brand. It's a firm I've wanted to work at since I was in graduate school. It took 8 years and 4 interviews and I'm very proud of it. I wanted to celebrate that tonight. With you. That's why I chose this restaurant. A beat of silence. My father said, Jenna, that's fantastic. My mother said, Of course, that's what tonight is about. We're celebrating both of you. You gave a 4-minute toast about Scott, I said. Not unkindly. Evenly. I'm not upset about that, I'm just naming it. The table was quiet. My aunt looked at her plate. My father looked at my mother. My grandmother Rose looked at me with an expression that contained, I thought, approximately 40 years of recognition. Scott said quietly, Congratulations, Jen. Just that. He meant it. He and I are fine. We have always been essentially fine. My mother started to say something. I wasn't entirely sure what it was going to be. Explanation, justification, a pivot. Because at that precise moment I heard a voice from the other side of the partition. Jenna! I turned. Renata Walsh was standing, napkin still in hand, apparently on her way back from somewhere or heading out, and had stopped at the edge of the partition. She looked at the table with easy composure and then at me. I didn't want to interrupt, she said, but I couldn't leave without saying congratulations. We're very glad you're joining us. I think you're going to do exceptional work. She said it to me, not to the table, not to the room, to me. Thank you, Renata, I said, and my voice held, which surprised me. She nodded once, the kind of nod that closes a statement, and walked back to her table. The silence that followed lasted long enough for everyone at my family's table to understand several things simultaneously. That the woman who had just spoken was not a casual acquaintance, that the firm she represented was not a minor thing, that I had not mentioned her presence once during the entire evening, that the 4-minute toast had happened in front of her. My mother's face did something complicated. My father said, in a tone I did not recognize from him, careful, almost careful, Is that your new boss? My new founding partner, I said. Yes. My aunt reached over and put her hand on mine. Honey, she said, congratulations. She said it the way it should have been said an hour earlier, with her full attention looking at my face. That was the moment I cried. Not during the toast, not during my own speech, not when Renata spoke. When my aunt said congratulations and actually looked at me. I am not someone who cries easily in public. I excused myself for about 4 minutes, stood in the tiled quiet of the Carmine's Grill restroom, and let myself feel the full weight of being seen, finally, in front of the people who should have been seeing me for years. Then I went back to the table and ate my dinner. My mother apologized in the car afterward, just the 2 of us, my father having driven separately. It was not a complete apology. It was the kind that contains the shape of acknowledgement without the full substance of it. She said she hadn't meant to make me feel overlooked. She said she thought we were celebrating both of us. She said she didn't always know how to, and then she stopped. I let the unfinished sentence sit. "I know you're proud of me," I said after a moment. "I've always known that. I just need you to say it to me first sometimes, before you say it about Scott, not instead of, first." She didn't respond for a block or two. Then she said, "That's fair," 2 words. But she said them without qualification, without pivoting, without immediately softening them into something else. Just, "That's fair." It was not everything, but it was the first true thing she had said to me in a long time, and I held on to it. I started at Whitmore and Brand 3 weeks ago. My desk is on the 3rd floor, west-facing windows, afternoon light that does something extraordinary to the drafting table. Renata stopped by on my second day with 2 cups of coffee and asked how I was settling in and whether the parking situation was manageable. We talked for 20 minutes about a residential project the firm had just taken on, and at the end she said lightly, "Your family seems like a lot." I laughed. "A real one." "They are," I said, "but I'm pretty good at working with complicated structures." She smiled. "That's why we hired you." If you are watching this and you recognize the shape of this evening, the table that was almost yours, the toast that went sideways, the years of being the one who achieved quietly while someone else was celebrated loudly, I want to say something to you directly. You do not have to choose between your family and your own story. But you are allowed to name what's happening. Gently, evenly, without a speech prepared. Just a clear, true sentence in the middle of a dinner that should have been about you. Sometimes naming it is enough. Not to fix it overnight. Not to rewrite 30 years. But to put your own outline on the table, in front of witnesses, and say, "I am here. This is real. This matters." The rest of the table will catch up. Some of them faster than others. Your grandmother will nod from across the centerpiece. Your aunt will take your hand. Your founding partner will stop on her way out and say your name clearly and mean every word of it. You are already enough. You were always enough. Let someone say it to your face. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever had a moment where you finally stopped waiting for the room to notice you and just told them, I would love to hear about it. That story belongs to you. You should get to tell it.